everyone, and welcome to Scale Your Sales podcast. Now, have you ever thought how EFT helps you to sell more and sell better? Now, we have here today Paul Durrant, and Paul is founder of PDT Sales Consultancy, an accredited EFT. This is Emotional Freedom Technique. We're going to talk more about that. He is a sales coach, public speaker, and an author. With 30 years experience in sales, Paul brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to his clients that he works with, helping startups and established businesses fix their sales-related problems, optimizing their sales and upskilling their sales people. So welcome to Scale Your Sales podcast, Paul.
Thank you, Janice, and I'm delighted to feature on your series. So very much looking forward to this session.
Well, let me start by asking you, what phrase do your clients use to describe what you do for them?
Well, I suppose I kind of fill their sales acumen gap. You know, there are very few small business owners out there that have any real sales experience or have ever had any formal sales training, but yet we all make a living selling something. So it's a struggle, and it doesn't come naturally for a lot of salespeople or business owners rather. So I kind of bring that knowledge, that know-how, and that acumen. I think one of my clients once said, "Do you know what you do? You bring order to my selling chaos." So that's almost one.
That's good.
Well, one explanation perhaps of how I can help.
Brilliant. So tell me more about the use of EFT to help to develop salespeople. I'm really interested in specifically how this works.
Yeah, sure. I mean, for your listeners that might not be familiar with EFT is short for Emotional Freedom Technique, but it's also known as tapping. It's a hybrid self-help therapy technique that uses psychology and physiology. The physiology bit is you using your fingertips to tap on meridian points that are located in and around your face, head and body, and you do that within a certain sequence, but also using affirmation statements. You're speaking out loud to yourself to address your subconscious. So you can use this hybrid approach to address phobias, disorders, pain, or emotion management, basically. But what I specifically use it for is to help small business owners that are perhaps lacking in confidence. And as you well know, sales is half of it's confidence, half of it is competence. So if you get your head right around sales, then quite often the rest of it will follow. So I certainly use that where people are inexperienced with sales, they haven't got their confidence. I can help them elevate their confidence levels to be more proficient and competent in sales.
So tell me about someone that you worked with that this was a really good method to release their insecurities or phobias or, you know, their thoughts about selling.
Yeah, well, there's a number of people I've worked with in recent times. I can remember a couple who, one specific small business owner was perhaps more introverted than he was extroverted. That was his personality type. And again, sales was a bit of a challenge for him. But as I've said, it's all in the head. So I was able to do some work with him just to increase his confidence levels, but also give him some strategy, some process, and some technique. And that in itself increases your confidence levels. And then there's another particular lady I have in mind who was basically an administration manager, taking calls for inbound leads, sales leads. And she's asked to do more of the sales, the inside sales element to that, nurturing those leads, understanding what the needs for the clients were, qualifying those leads, and then taking those calls on to appointments. And she didn't have that experience. And again, she wasn't the most, if you like, extrovert type of person. So able to do a few sessions with her just to improve her confidence levels, give her some tools to help her confidence. And the combination of that basically means she's in a much better place now to be able to take those calls, qualify them, handle clients' objections. That one always stumps a few people there. You know, sometimes you get a curveball question that you think, oh, well, I've never heard that before. And it puts you on the back foot. So again, giving this particular person some structure, some tools, and a little bit of a script as well. We quite often use a loose script on how to handle those sorts of objections and to take a call forward to the point where obviously you can qualify it and take the next step of making an appointment or sending out a proposal.
It's really interesting that, you know, you've been in sales for what, 20, 30 years now, haven't you?
Yeah.
And, you know, same with me in around the environment, and how, you know, you had the hunter sales, and a lot of introverted people are quite intimidated by that when they go into sales, and they still have the impression that that's what sales is all about. So if they're not like that, then they can't sell, or they'll say that they're not good at sales. But actually, don't you think that the environment, the culture of selling has evolved and changed? What's your perspective on this?
Yeah, yes, it has. You know, sales has always had a bad press. There's quite a negative image or connotation attached to sales. And when you mention the word sales, sometimes people think of, you know, double glazing, used car sales, snake oil salesman, that sort of type of thing. And I think because of that negative connotation, people perhaps take a step away from sales. They don't want to associate themselves with it. But unfortunately, that's obviously to the detriment of their top line and their business. And in the States, I'm sure you're familiar with, sales is properly seen as a profession. It's revered. And sales is put very much at the centre of many organisations, especially across the pond there. Whereas with here, there can still be that cultural clash between sales and operations. It's almost one working against the other, when really they should be dovetailed together, and everybody should be understanding everybody else's role in supporting sales within an organisation, because ultimately that's how we all make a living. We sell something to someone, we need customers to do that, we need to make a profit, and we do that by selling something to our customers. So yeah, sales has had a bad press. It's moved on a little bit now. I think the old style of selling, foot in the door, you know, this is my product or service, Mr. Customer, you know nothing about this, therefore I've got all the advantages. Now your customers are much more educated, sophisticated, and salespeople have to adapt to that much more informed customer now. I think that's the difference between traditional.
So talking about adapt, looking at B2B buyer behaviour, what has changed, and do you think that buyers need salespeople? Is there still a need for salespeople?
Yes, I think there is definitely still a need for salespeople. There's a website called Will Robots Take My Job, which you can Google, and it tells you what the probability of your job being replaced by a robot is in the next 2 decades. And if you type in salesperson there, it's quite low, it's 25%, whereas if you type in accountant, the probability is 95% that they're going to be replaced by a robot in the next 2 decades. So there's still a place for it. I mean, obviously inside sales is now tending to be the norm, where your salespeople are based indoors, and they're doing all of that nurturing and that rapport building online through social selling, online demos, that sort of webinars, etc. But ultimately, yeah, there's that person-to-person thing. People buy from people. I think it's still needed, certainly in the final stages of selling. Definitely if it's a complex sale and it's a long sales cycle where you need to build the relationship. But salespeople, they just need to offer more insight and be able to facilitate that decision now, whereas before they used to perhaps lead the buyer. Now they just need to facilitate the transaction, I think, more. So they just have to be more insightful, more aware of the customer and their particular environment, rather than just you know, the salesperson knowing their product or service. But that's how, I think, how things have moved on. So it's definitely still a place for a salesperson.
Yeah, excellent. Well, that's a good thing. What's your view on diversity in sales? I don't know what you've seen, how things have developed. Is there an issue? If so, why? And how would you solve it?
Yeah, I've worked for lots of sales teams over that 25-year period, some for international companies, some for smaller, more regional type of companies. And I found that the more diverse the sales team, I think that the more innovative and the more fresh you can keep the proposition, the offering there. If everybody has the same approach and the same outlook, you're not going to be able to develop your sales proposition. You know, you're going to be kind of standing still, and these days standing still is actually going backwards. The more diversity you've got in the team there, I think the more you can call on to help innovate, change, and adapt to those ever-changing customers' buying preferences. And you know, you just can't stand still. And I think having that diversity will help you keep moving forward.
Tell me a little bit about the book that you're writing.
Yeah, all right, okay. Well, it's been in my head for a couple of years, and it's taken me all this time to get around to it. But I sat down over the summer for 2 months. I missed all that glorious sunshine that we had in June and July, but I got to my 40,000 words over that time. And I've had this book in my head for a few years. And working with quite a lot of successful entrepreneurs, one of the things I did notice was that being a successful entrepreneur, being innovative and spotting an opportunity in a market, didn't necessarily go with being sales savvy enough to take that opportunity to market and to maximize that opportunity. So I felt that there was potentially a little bit of a space out there to provide a blueprint for a small business owner and show them how they can be both a bit more entrepreneurial in their approach, have a growth mindset, but also be more sales focused, have some strategy, some process, some technique around their selling, which will help bring that more consistency and give them that early traction that they'd need in the first 18 to 24 months of their business venture. So this book, Entrepreneurial Sales, kind of meets that need of giving you some entrepreneurial strategies and processes and techniques, but also helping you develop your sales acumen and dovetailing those two together to hopefully give you a lot more traction in your business early doors.
Excellent. I think you also do online courses, don't you?
Yeah. That was a reaction to the market out there. When I started 5 years ago, I was doing the consultancy, solving people's sales-related problems. But more and more people saying, "Oh, by the way, do you do sales training?" A lot of training out there is a bit generic. It's delivered by particularly generalists and not necessarily specialists. So I started doing the training, and then again, more and more people about a year ago saying, "All right, training, great. Do you do it online? Because I'm on a limited budget and I need something that's cost effective and supplementary." So I've now developed 10 online sales training courses. They can all be accessed in my website, pdtsalesconsultancy.co.uk. And there's even a promo code that your listeners can use if they wanted to jump onto one of those courses. If they put into once they enroll online, if they put in more sales, which is all uppercase, that will give them a 20% off any of those 10 online training courses.
Excellent.
And that's me.
Thank you very much. So the last question is, if you're on a desert island on your own, what would you take with you?
Wow. Okay. It would have to be something practical, wouldn't it? Because if you're there, you've got to take every opportunity to try and be safe. So I think it would be a telescope. So I wouldn't necessarily be able to spot some shipping on the horizon with my naked eye, but with a telescope, I might just spot that lone ship that could save me and give me a chance to start my fire. And then also at night, I could use the telescope to peer at the starry sky and contemplate how insignificant I am on that desert island. So there you go, something practical like a telescope, I think.
Well, do you know, when I lived in Africa, I used to look at the sky all the time because it was better than TV. There was so much activity, so I think it will keep you very entertained.
If nothing else, yeah.
If
absolutely.
nothing else. So thank you very much, Paul. How can people contact you?
Right. Well, you can jump on LinkedIn. I should be the top ranked Paul Durrant on LinkedIn there. You'll find me on there, and you can obviously connect to LinkedIn with me on that. You can go to my website, pdtsalesconsultancy.co.uk. There's a contact us page there. Or you can drop me an email at info@pdtsalesconsultancy.co.uk. I'm also on Twitter as well. You can just find me on that. But by all means, drop me a line, say hello.
Excellent, Paul. Thank you very much. Thank you for being a guest on Scale Your Sales podcast.
Thank you, Janice.